Hello and welcome to the Berkcast, the How to Train a Dragon podcast. I'm your host, HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And today we are going to ask ourselves a question that everyone has asked themselves since the beginning of time. What if? What if this happened? What if that happened? And what happened if Rush actually showed up on time? But what can
I mean, we'll never know the answer to that question.
you? So, people can ask whatever about everything, and How to Train a Dragon is no exception. If you've been reading some How to Train a Dragon fanfics, or been to forums, or just had a discussion about it with anyone, you probably ask yourself at one point, what if? So today we are going to go over some what if scenarios that could have existed in the How to Train a Dragon universe. One rule though, we are not uh, we're not including what happened or like what happened if Hiccup missed Toothless because Race to the Edge kind of did it, and we don't really want to tread any water that the show did. So with
I
that
don't see
said,
why, but all right, fair enough. Fair enough.
like because just because there's a quote unquote official representation of this, I don't see the need because it doesn't really allow. Because if we think about it, if we think about how would we do it, we would know that there's something else out there done by DreamWorks. So I don't see the point.
Fair enough.
With that said, let's start our first what if scenario. So this is probably one of the most famous ones. I saw a lot of fan fictions about it.
Oh yeah.
He Hiccup runs away with Toothless in the
So
beginning. In the beginning,
you
in near
say
the end.
there's a lot of fan. Let's be specific. When you say Hiccup runs away with Toothless, do we mean does he run away when Astrid catches him the first time, or what? I say that would probably be the best opportune time for him to run away.
Like
Is
most of the takes I've seen of it is like when after he's chosen to kill the dragon
and
in
Astrid catches him
dragon.
that first time before
Yeah.
the romantic
So
flight scene. That's when he chooses to run away,
yeah,
right?
true.
All right. There's a
That
reason most fanfic I would say pick that moment in particular. Some of them, it's I think it's the idea in general, but many of them, like again, there was a progenitor for this idea, I would say, and that is Hitchups. I think Hitchups is the first, if maybe I think Hitchups is the first one to write out a fanfic for
or
that
at,
idea.
or at least well known, most well known.
Either the most well known, but I think it is also just one of the first ones to really pull off that idea and do it well, right? And with that being the case, like I think it's probably the best one to point out to. I mean, yeah, like Hiccup runs away with Toothless is a really interesting idea. What if he does? It's a lot of good
And
questions there.
as the franchise goes on, you could actually build up on it because I read one. I don't remember much of it. It was by some person on Berg's Online. It's called To Boldly Flee,
I've heard of that
and
one. Not read it, but I've heard
and
of
one
it.
of the yeah, and one of the things I enjoyed about that is because when the person, I'm not sure if it's a he or she, so but when they published this story, like we already had How to Train Dragon 2, I think Race to the Edge was just starting to become a thing. So so there's so when you have those more information about this world now, then you can actually play around with it. So what this person did was, okay, Hiccup runs away from Berk when he's 15, and what was Zara doing during that time? Like, was he always a drunken hunter before Hiccup met him or something? So we actually meet an Eret before he became a dragon hunter, and like they also like, what if Hiccup actually found Valka way earlier in his life? And like even now, you can also like now that Hidden World is out, what happened if Hiccup ran away and then he would accidentally come across the Hidden World? That's also something. So this is something that you can play around with, either with your own imagination or just stuff that future media build upon.
Actually, that does bring up a really good point, right? Because you have you have fan fiction that was written, back in, movie one, right? Like Hitchups is a great example. It was written after movie one, and it was the same what if scenario. And because we had so little to the world, Hitchup basically, said, "Hey, the author of Hitchup said, hey, let's set this in more of a real world setting and kind of play with it in that way, right? And say he goes to Europe, he travels throughout, different countries within Europe, right? He travels to other places as well that I don't remember because it's been a long time since I've read the book. The point is, right, it takes more from the real world and what Hiccup might have encountered during that time with dragons within that setting as well. And it's interesting, right? But now that we do have more information on the world of How to Train Your Dragon, like, it would be interesting to see, that same author's take on it now. Would they do it differently, right? Or would it be the same still? And also, like, new people coming into the fold writing a similar story. You have more stuff to draw from. Like you just said, we could meet Erid, we could meet Volko, we could meet, you know, Drago before he gets his army set up. We could meet, we
Vigo.
could meet Vigo. We could
Oh,
meet the Dragon Hunters. We could
yeah.
see the hidden world. We could see other islands, other tribes like the Berserkers, like the Defenders of the Wing. So much different stuff you can do now that you have to draw from and potentially play with. Like it really
Yeah.
does give you a lot more material to work with in terms of where you can take things and what you can do necessarily.
Yeah, so the one question I do want to ask you about that what if scenario, uh, not necessarily regarding hitch-ups, just when you see this being done, do you see, like, is the other doing this, like Hiccup runs away with Toothless alone, or is he running away with Toothless and Astrid?
Most of what I've seen is Hiccup running away with Toothless.
Like, and Astrid is just not there. That's the what if
No.
scenario. She
Astrid, yeah,
doesn't. She
like,
doesn't show up.
I think generally the idea is, I think most people say, like, Astrid is the village, Viking's Viking, she's the village idol, so she's the one who kind of pushes him in that direction the most, the direction of running away. So I would say, like, she's the one who's, definitely probably, the reason that probably the one of the big reasons that he leaves is how he sees her in this new light and everything, when he learns more about her because he's able to be closer to her. And so she ends up pushing him away, and he ends up getting pushed away from the village as well on top of that, right? And so that's why he chooses to run away. I don't I don't know if they probably have, but I've not seen it where, actually, no, I take that back. I have seen one where it was definitely a much different story. It was definitely an alternate universe thing, but I have seen a story that did it where Hiccup ran away with Toothless and Astrid as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking because To
I
Boldly
have
Flee
seen
was
that.
like that.
I have seen one. Again, I've not read To Boldly Flee, but I have heard of it. So maybe it does it really well. I don't know. But the one I seen was a Viking, kind of steampunkish AU, where the Vikings were a little bit more advanced, and it was. Oh man, I'm trying to remember. Like, it was Astrid was his bodyguard in that one.
Okay.
But at the same time, like, she had lied because she was pretending to be a guy because females weren't allowed to be bodyguards. Again, I'm explaining it very poorly. It's written much
Yeah,
better.
I see the point. I see the
Just
point.
to our
Um,
audiences, for context for our audience, I'm explaining it poorly, but I feel it was written very well, much better than I'm explaining it. But again, it was an interesting take. It was Astrid, Toothless, and Hiccup running away, and that was it. And also, it had a very interesting take on the relationship between Astrid and Hiccup as well, because it wasn't a romantic thing. It was very much a more familial thing.
that's uh, that's something I do want to bring up. That people who usually, I believe that you just proved me wrong. That people who kind of did the entire Astrid kind of tags along for the trip with them. is because you need that history in there.
Yeah, this
But
one
that's
did it differently. This one was very much again, it was more familial bonds. Like Astrid saw Hiccup as more of a younger brother, and there wasn't much of a romantic thing there. It was very much, we look out for one another, we protect one another, we care about one another, but it's not in a romantic way. It's more familial, family bond,
yeah. Okay. Before we move
which was
on,
interesting.
to those who know me or probably heard this podcast before, I had a phase in my life, like I still kind of like it in terms of fan art and stuff, but I had a phase where I was a Mericap shipper, Hiccup and Merida from Brave, and
Mm-hmm.
this setup was kind of a reason to get that ship going in some stories.
Hiccup running away.
Yeah, that there's the entire thing. Okay, I need to leave, and he takes Toothless, flies up, and he arrives at Dunbrook, the king, Merida's kingdom from
Yeah,
Brave,
that's fair. That
and
could work. I could see it working. Yeah.
yeah, and he just stays there. And one thing I did like is because usually shipping stories like this end with an epilogue where the ship has a baby or a
Mm.
kid.
Uh huh.
So hold on. So the I don't remember the names. I don't remember the names of the stories, but maybe I'll link them later. But the other made a sequel where the kid is more grown up, and through some mumbo jumbo that is explained better in the story itself, ends up at the time Hiccup was 15. and she and the funny thing there is that his daughter in the past kind of convinces him to go along with his beliefs, and go face the monster's nightmare, what the one that would become Hunfeng, instead of running away. Like she encourages him to face his fears and actually try and convince his father. But by doing that and not allowing him to run away, she prevented herself from existing. So that's kind of cool.
Okay. Hmm. Neat.
Mm-hmm. Also, there's a funny joke where Nikap actually asks her if Astrid is her mother, and she's like, "Oh no, my mother is Princess so and so," and he's like, "I married a princess? Neat." That's something that Hiccup would say. So you know what? Credit where credit is due. It's creative and funny. Moving on.
Moving on.
So we are moving on to Race to the Edge. Hiccup didn't come across the Dragon Eye.
So this one's a little interesting, I think, simply because if he doesn't come across the Dragon Eye, I guess none of Race to the Edge happens, does it?
Mm-hmm.
Does he
Yeah,
feel
but
like, yeah, again, the Dragon Eye
because
is kind of the thing that makes him feel like, hey, I want to leave Berk, I want to get out. It's what gives us that kind of college vibe, I guess you would say, that want to leave home
exactly.
and adventure.
Uh,
If he doesn't find the
yeah,
Dragon Eye, does Hiccup still want to go out and adventure, and do they find a reason to do that?
mhm. Yeah, that's another. Yeah, you pretty much summed it up. Like if he didn't find the Dragon Eye, then honestly, then one is kind of funny the Dragon Eye because Dagger kind of looking for it as well. I don't remember the first season of Rest of the Edge all that well at the moment, but
Uh,
at the end of the day, he finds it because Dagger is kind of on the loose again, and they need to, and he also says when they come across it, we're not living it for Dagger. So that's also a thing that if he didn't find it, will Dagger find it? And then maybe they could get to the edge. But you know, hmm.
hmm. I guess also, right. The question is if they don't find the Dragon Eye, if Hiccup doesn't have that, would Hiccup's adventurous spirit still be there? Would he still want to go out and adventure? Like, kind of, finding the Dragon Eye and using the Dragon Eye is kind of how he convinces all the other teens to go along with him
Yeah.
to the edge, and
Because
creating
yeah,
the edge and all of
because
that. If the Dragon Eye isn't found, would all of them still come with him?
That's actually a thing that I remember was established at the beginning of Race to the Edge, where all the teams kind of had their own thing to do
Yeah,
in on Berk,
they were kind of
and
moving on with
Hiccup,
their lives.
yeah, and Hiccup was like, he didn't find his spot yet, probably because he knew he needed to take over as chief or something, but he didn't find the spot. And the thing that kind of reinnovates reinnovates everything about dragons is because he finds the dragon eye and they want to go out and explore it. You're right. So, but this would have, but this could actually mean if he hadn't found the dragon eye, would he be more open to be taking on chief by the time How to Train Dragon 2 rolls around?
Okay, I'm gonna need you to keep talking on your own. Spilling a cup of water really sucks.
Oh,
I'll be back.
yeah. Here's a what if scenario for you guys. What happened if Wolf didn't spill that glass of water? Well, if I need to keep entertaining you for myself, yeah, he just muted himself. Oh God, this is on pressure, pressure. But anyway, I'll kind of skim through it. What I think regarding the Dragon I'm not talking to anyone. I'm talking to a bunch of people who might not be listening to this. Man, this is something. Okay, but to you guys, I think that if Hiccup didn't find the Dragon Eye, so one, Race to the Edge wouldn't have necessarily happened. Like, we wouldn't meet Vigo or Riker and any of these other characters. But also, I think that Hiccup's adventurous spirit wouldn't have necessarily been satisfied without the Dragon Eye, which would have probably made him more ready to take over as chief in How to Train Dragon 2. No, could have moved on, but at the same time, I don't know if Wolf has anything to say about it, so I just need to keep dragging the sun. But you know what? Quickly moving forward, the next AU we talk about is Hiccup killing Toothless, the beginning of How to Train Dragon 1. So obviously, the thing that most likely happen if that were the case is that there's no franchise, there's nothing. But the question that comes from this is how much Hiccup's reputation would have changed if he would have brought Toothless's heart to Stuek, and like would how much would that have changed him? Because we know that, yeah, now we can say we have Grimmel to think about, and how he was basically what happened if Hiccup killed Toothless at that time. But at the same time, Hiccup and Grimmel are kind of a different ideologies. So who knows? And seeing how Hiccup was always a loser before he would have killed Toothless, quote unquote, then how much would that simple act change his reputation? Like, would people actually start taking him more seriously, or taking him like a bit more seriously, but still cautious about it because he still messes up. He was still a screw up at that time. Like, one dragon kill, even if it's a Night Fury, isn't going to change much, no matter what he thinks. So to be honest, this is an interesting one. I just wish I had Wolf with me. For the love of God, this is painful, people.
It's
This is
difficult
really
doing this
painful.
on your own, isn't it?
Oh, oh, thank God
I thought
you're
about
back.
sitting here just in quietness, not doing anything for a little while longer, see how long you could go for, but most of the water is up. I am back, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry. Ugh.
Okay, so have you heard my monologuing
No, I
for
was
the
busy
past couple
cleaning
of
up
seconds?
water.
Okay.
Water everywhere.
So,
So much water.
okay, so going back a bit to the Hiccup didn't come across the Dragon Eye.
Set this over
I
here.
So thinking about it
Doesn't
more, I
fall.
think that if he hadn't found the Dragon Eye, then maybe he would be a bit more ready to settle down and become chief when How to Train Dragon 2 rolls around.
You think so?
Because the adventurous spirit would probably die down a bit, and he would have less adventures out there in the open, and he'll have to take a bit less responsibility, and so he'll probably feel like he's not still looking for something.
I
I
would
think.
disagree. I think he would feel even more like he's looking for something because he wouldn't be able to adventure like he'd want. Because again, I think one of the bigger reasons that he goes out for the edge is because he's able to convince all the other teens to go with him, right? So without them going with him, I think he would probably be less inclined to go out to the edge himself. Like again, like he only convinces them because of the Dragon Eye, because of Dagger, because they find the Dragon Eye, because they know Dagger's after the Dragon Eye, and then they see what the Dragon Eye is capable of. It's because of that he's able to convince Astrid, Snotlout, Fishlegs, and the twins to go with him and to go out to the edge and all of that, right? So I think because if he wasn't able to find it, if he wasn't able to convince them to go with him, and he wasn't able to go by himself, he would be even more longing for that adventure, for that ability to go out and explore the world, because he wouldn't have been able to when he was younger.
Mhm.
So I think he
Okay.
would be even more against becoming chief, because that would lock him down and take away that ability to do that even more so.
Well, both possible options, which I guess we'll never know the answer to,
He might even
because
be, you could say he might even be less willing to get together with Astrid in the third movie as well, because, again, doing so would tie him down that much more. Like, not saying, Astrid's a weight or anything like that before anyone gets on me. Not saying Astrid's a weight or she's like, the ball and chain that ties Hiccup and basically isn't letting Hiccup do what he wants to do.
Wolf just called Astrid fat.
That's
Just
not what that
saying.
means. That's not at all what that implies. You're
I
taking
know,
the
I know.
wrong implication from that. You're taking a better
I'm just,
implication than what I was.
I'm just messing around.
But no, I'm not
Okay,
saying Astrid is
so
fat. I'm not saying that Astrid is his ball and chain tying him down and keeping him from doing what he wants to do. Just saying that he might be less inclined to marry Astrid in the third movie if he wasn't able to adventure and to adventure and explore the world like he wanted to when he was younger. Because it's through that exploration, I think, that he finds and figures out who he is and where he belongs and things of that nature, right? And if he's unable to commit to that exploration, if he's unable to do that, then he would, be less inclined to stick around in one place even more so, I feel. And again, I think it's like through that adventurous spirit, through him wanting to adventure, that ends up him and meeting Valka, Drago, and getting Stoic, passing to some degree, right?
okay.
So, like, there's a lot of things that could potentially change there. Some I think would still happen, but some that could potentially change somewhat.
Yeah, and considering events that could have changed the entire franchise, we have the next AU Hiccup killing Toothless, the beginning of the first movie. I kind of talked
Basically,
about that
Hiccup's
while you
Grimmel.
were.
Hiccup becomes
Yeah,
Grimmel.
jokes aside, though, I did kind of mention this that you know all things considered, Hiccup and Grimmel are still a bit different than each other, and that it's not. I don't see Hiccup becoming like a hunter that's like doing it for the game. He's just, and also while it would have raised Hiccup's reputation a bit because he killed the Night Fury, I wouldn't say that. I won't say that he's still like seen as a hero like Grimmel said he was, because one dragon, even if it's a Night Fury against a bunch of screw ups, is still one dragon against a bunch of screw ups. So it will probably make people look at him a bit more, a bit more with a bit more respect, but not much to actually raise.
It would make people consider his ideas more, right? Like, you saw everyone like, hey, this is another one of Hiccup's dumb, silly inventions. Let's all leave now before it gets one of us killed. Right? Like, it would make people consider his inventions more seriously, right? It would give him a bit more clout in that regard because Hiccup took down the Night Fury. So, obviously, he has to have some idea what he's talking about. The second people see his inventions screw up once more and get people hurt potentially, or, they see that he's still the same Hiccup, they'll be like, okay, it's the same Hiccup, he just somehow got really lucky. or the Night Fury died on the spot and Hiccup's just taking claim for it. Who knows? Like, you could definitely play around with that idea. Like, it gives him some fame for a time, but once they see that Hiccup's still the same old Hiccup, people might start to question it. Like, did he really kill the Night Fury? Is he just lying? Did someone else do it and he's taking credit for it? Did he just find a dead Night Fury somewhere and just, carved out its heart and just said he killed it when actually it had just died? Like, again, people will question it, or they'll just, they'll come up with reasons to explain away that Hiccup did it, sure, but they'll explain it away. They'll come up with reasons to explain it away and say, like, oh, something else happened. Hiccup didn't actually do this, right? Like, that's one thing, that's one way you could look at it. Like, Hiccup gets famous for a time, he gets some clout for a time, and then that's taken away through Hiccup being Hiccup, you know? And sure, Hiccup might change in that time to some degree, like, right, like, it might change him somewhat, but he's still going to more or less be Hiccup. So he's not going to change so much that, everything about his life is going to be completely different forever. Because it won't be. It was never going to be. That's kind of the point.
Okay.
It was a quick, means of changing his life for the better for a time, but eventually things are going to go back to the way they were, or if not even worse than before, because of how people still see Hiccup and who Hiccup still is. That's not going to change that fact. Other than him specifically, like, killing a Night Fury isn't going to change that fact. Hiccup himself specifically has to change. So if changing the Night Fury, if he, kills the Night Fury and then also uses that as a way and means of, like, actual changing himself, then sure, things for him would change. But just killing the Night Fury wouldn't change everything permanently. It was never going to. With that said, though, I would also say, right, like, him killing the Night Fury would definitely change up how things could eventually work out with Volca, how things would work out with, Stoic's death and Drago, because it wouldn't be Toothless that
there's a
kills
good,
Stoic.
yeah, because there wouldn't be a Toothless to kill Stoic. There wouldn't be a Toothless to fly Hiccup to meet Valka and Drago and the hunters and everything. There's a good chance that Berk would just be his entire world. And he wouldn't even know about the other stuff that goes around.
That brings up a good question, right? Like, would Hiccup go out and adventure? Like, would he, how would those adventures change from dragon riding to boat riding instead?
Yeah, because something, there is this thing that Grimmel does mention that he knows Stuek and Stuek knew him and everything, so it's not like he will be completely oblivious to the world around him. But
we don't know if Stoic knew Grimmel, but we definitely know Grimmel knew of Stoic at the very least.
No, he says your father heard of me.
Okay, fair enough. Heard of is not necessarily no, but sure.
But he knows that Grimmel the Nasty was walked this earth. He knows that there's a person answering to that name.
Fair enough. I mean, again, like, it does, like, that would definitely change. If Toothless was dead, that would definitely change up a lot of that stuff. But at the same time, right, like, Grimmel wouldn't attack Berk. He'd have no reason to. Heck, none of the warlords would attack Berk either. They would have no reason to.
Yeah.
Because Berk wouldn't be a place for dragons. Well, I take that back. They would attack Berk, but they wouldn't attack it because of the fact that they have dragons or a Night Fury. They would be attacking it because they want Berk to join them. And that brings up another question. Would Hiccup be a warlord? Would he become Drago even? Would he be the version of Drago?
This is interesting to think about, but at the same time, it's like a what if of a what if, because this didn't happen.
Well, I mean, it does give you license to explore the idea, like like we have in this list. What if Volca was evil? In this case, Volca would be evil because she would be the good guy versus Hiccup's bad guy.
True.
So in this world, to Hiccup, Volca would be evil. Because she's protecting the dragons who kill all of these people, who kill his people,
Okay.
And also, the question remains, like, would Hiccup stick with this, or would he still change eventually? Right? Like, would he still seek peace, but in a different way? Would he still become eventually?
Yeah,
Would he still try to be
because at the end of the day,
non-violent-ish?
Hiccup befriending Toothless is one of the most important events in his life, because that to some extent that changes him. He starts to think that peace is possible. He starts to realize he can't hurt dragons. He starts realizing how dragons walk. He starts realizing that everything he was taught to believe is not true.
Mm-hmm.
So what would a hiccup that went on with killing Toothless be like? Because I'm not sure he would necessarily want peace. If anything, maybe that would actually, like Stoic actually says when he heard that Hiccup is doing so well in dragon training, he says, just wait until you kill a dragon for the first time. And so maybe he would have become bloodthirsty.
But
We don't
Stoic's not really
know.
bloodthirsty, though, I would say. Like, Stoic does, in his own way, want peace. It's just he sees the only way of getting peace is eliminating all of the dragons. Right?
Or
Like,
Setting Up the Hidden World,
oh
also an
yeah, but like
option.
I mean, like, you know, his idea is if I basically make it to where dragons can't enter our world, that's peace. If I cut them off, that's peace for us, right? Like, that's his version of peace. Or if I kill all of the dragons, you know, that's his version of peace, right? Like, he doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
want to continue fighting, but he does want peace. He just doesn't see any other opportunity, any other means of achieving that peace other than fighting, right? Like, you know, that is his Stoic's goal is peace as well. He's not necessarily bloodthirsty. He enjoys, you know, the hunt of the dragon. He enjoys fighting them because they do give a good, you know, fight, I guess you would say. But at the same time, he does eventually want peace. He does, you know, seek peace. He just doesn't see any other means to gain it, to, you know, achieve it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it does beg the question, like, would Hiccup eventually, you know, would Hiccup want peace? Would he not want peace? Would, you know, would Hiccup still be Hiccup and try and find other ways to make peace, even if he killed Toothless, right?
Yeah. And that kind of brings us to the next category. What
Hiccup
if
makes a
Valka
giant cage to put around Berk.
Okay.
Or Hiccup comes
Not
up
that.
with
Wolf.
the Patrick idea of what if we take Berk and
We
just
can push it
move it
somewhere else.
and just push it somewhere else. The hiccupest of hiccup ideas.
You know something? You might be joking, but he technically kind of did that in Hidden World.
He did.
That
He
was
did.
his
He actually did. He said,
yeah.
I mean, they didn't push Burke, but they did say, like,
Yeah.
what if we take the metaphorical Burke and just
Yeah,
move it somewhere
and
else?
yeah, so you joke, but that's actually canon.
So yeah,
They
actually did that. Hiccup is the How to Train Your Dragon World's version of Patrick Star. Hiccup Star.
I've gone insane.
There's an idea for fan artists. Hiccup, you know, Patrick looking like Hiccup or Hiccup looking like Patrick. There you go. Fan artists, get on that. You're welcome.
Oh my god.
Always great ideas here from the Berkcast. Always. You are welcome for that image in your head now.
I hate you. Just so you know. I hate you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Moving back to topic. What if Valka killed Cloudjumper? I swear to God, if you call Valka Sandy, I'm going to.
That didn't even cross my mind, but now that you brought it up.
Oh my God, it actually makes sense. Oh.
It's the bullworm. It's the Arctic bullworm. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
It's the Arctic
that's
bullworm all over again.
That's the same episode.
But I couldn't
That's
remember if it was
same
the Arctic bullworm or not, though. I didn't remember what the worm's name was. But it's the Arctic bullworm all over again.
Oh my God.
You know, this one's interesting because, you know, again, if Valka killed Cloudjumper instead of getting abducted by him, then, or, you know, how to explain that scene? Yeah, like she falters, I guess would be the word I'm looking for. I think.
On the one hand, I think that like maybe that the only reason she threatened Cloudjumper to begin with was because Hiccup was in
Yeah,
danger.
because she thought Hiccup was in
But
danger. The second she saw that Hiccup was in danger, she didn't plan on killing Cloudjumper, right? Like she was still scared of Cloudjumper in that scene. But again, that's why I think falters is the right word there. Like she was committed to in that moment. Like, we knew Valka was, hey, let's not kill dragons, let's not fight dragons, let's try and find a different way of peace, right? We know Valka was all for that. But in that instance, when she saw that her child was in danger, possibly, from what she saw and what she thought, she was very much okay. I'm going to kill this dragon if I have to protect my child. But the second she saw that Hiccup wasn't in danger, she falters in that idea. Like, right, she realizes, oh God, I'm doing exactly the same thing I've tried to preach against all this time. And then she falters. So yeah, falters is the right word. I think falters is the right word. Disagree with me in the comments below if you think I'm wrong. Anyways, if Valka killed Cloudjumper, then the idea would be that Valka's still around. She's still Hiccup's mom during all that time. Would that change her? Would killing Cloudjumper change her opinion on dragons? Would she still seek peace in much the same, would she still seek a different way of peace, of not fighting the dragons? Would she still be for that, or would she be against it now? Would, would she change, and if so, how would she change? How would Hiccup change with Valka still being around?
That's something like regarding her. If she actually went on with killing him, I I don't think she would make killing dragons a priority. Like I don't see it changing her in some way. But I still think she'll try and stop people from actually killing dragons. She just did it because her son was in danger. But I don't see her being like
Yeah, but if
on the
she did
front
it,
line fighting him.
but again, like you do have to keep in mind, if she's willing to say, "Hey, we shouldn't kill dragons," people are going to look at her and say, "But what about you and that dragon you killed? You did that." Well, that was to protect my son. It was different. I mean, you still killed dragons. Like people are going to come up with that. People are going to say that to
Okay,
her.
so
People's
rephrase.
minds about her will have changed, and she herself will change to some degree as well. I feel.
Well,
She may not be
so I
all
will.
for killing
So
dragons
let
after that, but
can I rephrase my statement for a
well,
second?
I'm just saying, right? Like there will be a different outlook. I'm not trying to keep
Okay.
you from talking. Sorry.
Okay, just to say it quickly, not necessarily that she'll try and defend the dragons anymore, but I see her, like she wouldn't be rush enough to kill any
Oh no, yeah.
dragons if they don't come across near her, Hiccup or Stuek. But at the same time, I don't see her defending them anymore in
Uh,
this scenario.
I think she would still try to defend them, but it would be harder for her to do so because, again, she's done the thing
Like
that she preached against
hypocrite
now.
in a sense.
Well, yeah, but eh, in some ways, yeah. In some ways, not. I feel right. Like it's very again, like I think it would be an interesting look into the psyche of a person, who is very much for one thing, but having very much against a thing, but having done that thing themselves as well in a moment of crisis or of, panic, right? Like, she killed a dragon, something that she's very much been against and preached against, but she still killed one. Regardless of the reason, she still did it. So you would very much have a story of, Volka questioning herself, her motives, and is possibly even is she the right person to raise Hiccup? Is because if she can't stand by her own ideals and morals, is she the right person to raise Hiccup? Is she good enough for Hiccup? Like you have a bunch of questions that could be asked of that nature
Yeah,
that Valka
because
could question herself
that,
on.
yeah, and that also kind of leads how different of a person Hiccup would be if he was raised by both his mother and his father.
Mm-hmm. And also like how would that change Valka and Stoic's relationship as well? Because if Volka's against killing dragons and Stoic is all for it, it's very much there's going to be conflict there. We have to imagine there was conflict there to begin with as well. Like, sure, they might have loved
Yeah,
one another, they might have
more.
gotten along, but there definitely was conflict there. There had to be.
I'll I'll refer you to my Valka backstory fanfiction where I actually touched upon this. There were probably some discussions between these two about this,
Your story is something
most
very
likely.
different, though, too, so it has some discussions also that had to take on in a much different tone as well. But, anyways.
Well, but yeah, obviously, but I mean, when once Valka is on Berk, I did write in a conversation between these two about it.
Fair enough.
Oh, oh well, moving on. So, moving on to Hidden Wall territory, the Light Fury doesn't follow Toothless back to New Berk. This, just to clarify, this is after Toothless brings Hiccup and Astrid back from the Hidden Wall near the end of the movie.
Yeah. With this one, I would say, let's say for one idea, Toothless still gets captured. Well, or
Okay.
that Grimmel still comes there to capture Toothless. At this point, there's nothing really holding Toothless back from having the rest of the dragons sick on Grimmel, so Grimmel probably... So it would probably result in that scenario, my mind probably goes to Grimmel and Toothless into basically killing each other. Like,
Yeah.
Grimmel kills Toothless,
Those,
all the other dragons kill Grimmel.
Mhm.
And
But
that's how that
then
story ends.
then there's also a thing though, because once they land, like Toothless looks kind of bummed, he's expecting Hiccup to tell him to stay, but Hiccup tells him, "No, it's all right. You belong out there with her." And then the second afterwards, the Light Fury shows up, and Hiccup is like, "Maybe we don't have to say goodbye after all." And then the second after that, Roughnet appears, and that's when Grimmel shows up. So the question is, let's say at this moment Hiccup actually said goodbye to Toothless, and Toothless would have just flown back to the Hidden World. Would Grimmel still capture him, or would that be like that 1 second difference that they
Ooh.
needed?
That one's interesting. Would that be the one? It could be. If you did say it was the 1 second difference, then what happens to then Grimmel and the rest of the warlords do know where Berk has moved to now, so there's definitely going to be a fight with that still. It's
Yeah,
just without the alpha, what happens to all the other
like
dragons?
not necessarily without the Alpha, but without Toothless in general, because Grimmel's ultimatum is like, bring me the Night Fury, or I destroy everything you love.
Well, we
Therefore,
know they're not going to give up the Night Fury, and we know they're not going to give up the
yeah,
Hidden
but
World.
that
So
yeah, but that's exactly the point. Let's say there was this 1 second difference, and Toothless would have flown off, and Grimmel would have missed him. What would Grimmel do to New Berk?
well, I mean, there's going to be a war. There's going to be a fight. They're going to attack one another. And again,
Yeah.
that's my point. Without the Alpha, without Toothless, the rest of the dragons don't necessarily have a leader, so they don't have someone they can listen to and follow. So they're going to maybe be at a disadvantage, maybe not. It depends. It really,
Yeah,
it really does
because
depend on that one.
but then you need to take into account that in this kind of battle, then now that the Toothless isn't captured and the Light Fury's life is no longer at stake, then the dragons are pretty much free to do as they please. So once they see the riders being attacked, like, you can bet your ass that if Grimmel or one of his soldiers try to land a hand on Astrid, Stonefly would be there. Alpha, no Alpha.
Maybe.
It's not a maybe. This is a fact. This is a law.
It's maybe. I'm going to say maybe. I'm going to say maybe they won't.
How is this a maybe?
I've read the books. That's where I'm basing my knowledge off from. Because in the books, right, the dragons aren't as exactly dedicated to their masters as they are in the show and the movies at times. So, and there's no clear indication that the dragons beyond Toothless are extremely dedicated to their, owners and or masters as well. Like, yeah, they care for one another. They look after one another. They let the Berkians fly on them, and the Berkians look after them in turn. But is there more to it than that? Sometimes they show there is. Sometimes they show that maybe there's not. So maybe the dragons wouldn't stick around if Toothless leaves. Maybe the second they realize Toothless left, they too would start to leave of their own accord.
Something that is another interesting way to look at it. Like, again, this is a what if scenario. This is another what if scenario that can lead into
it's a what if into a what if into a what if Inception is what it is. Blah, there you go. But I mean, yeah, like there's definitely a lot of ways and places you could take and explore it. But I think like the big thing is that's if you consider like that 1 second makes all the difference. If it doesn't, what if Ruff shows up, the Light Fury doesn't show up, and Grimmel still captures Toothless? And the other dragons don't get there in time to stop Grimmel. What happens then? Is Toothless just dead and that's it? Do the warlords still go after Berk? What happens there?
Too many questions. My brain hurts.
You're the one that wanted to do this episode. You knew this episode was going to be a bunch of what if, but what if though, but what if. But what if? It keeps going and going, my man. It keeps going and going. It is the Energizer Bunny of questions. It never stops. Once you ask one, you have to ask the next one. And the next.
Okay, so just because we can push this in and go in tons of other different directions.
Basically, this is Fanfiction Prompts, the episode, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome. If you watch this episode, you will have an idea for a fanfic. We assure you. We guarantee it. The Berkcast guarantee.
People who want fanfic ideas, you're welcome. What I do want to say about this, though, is that in my personal headcanon, if the Light Fury didn't follow Toothless, it could lead to either what you said, which is there will probably be some sort of a war, but not on the same scale as we saw in the movie, or that could be that last, 1 second difference idea that Hiccup did let Toothless go and Grimmel missed them.
I think the scale of the war would still be the same. It would just be more drawn out.
It will handle differently though, because Hiccup wouldn't have Toothless, but the others would have their dragon.
Yeah, they would have their dragons potentially, and there might be less dragons involved. Again, there would be more Berkians themselves involved too. So again, I think the scale would be similar, but it would be more drawn out. It would be longer. It would last much longer.
Yeah. So the next one, Valka didn't find the Bewilder Beast's egg or omelet.
Ooh, omelet. Best dragon. Best dragon hatched from an egg.
Yeah. So this is gonna have a straightforward answer. Let's say Valka didn't have the, and again we know that some people don't really see this as canonical or not making any.
No, it's canon because we got the name Omelet. His name is Omelet. That is canon.
No. I'm not talking about that.
No, I know you're not. You're saying people don't view that the Bewildered Beast grew from an egg that Valka got from the Defenders of the Wing. It is canon because without that bit, his name can't be Omelet. His name is Omelet, therefore that bit is canon. I don't care what anyone says, it's canon. I don't care if Dean himself says it's not canon. It's canon, Dean. Get over it. His name is Omelet now. That is canon. His name is Omelet, and that is the reason it is canon, Dean. You are wrong if you say otherwise.
Okay, but the short answer is
tangent aside.
Tangent aside. This is not a tangent. This is like you versus the internet at the moment.
It's me versus Dean. You're wrong, Dean. I'm right. Rewrite How to Train Your Dragon 2, Dean.
Wolf,
Omelet.
don't. But going back to our top. Stop.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. I have a few doubts about that, but basically, if she didn't have the Bewilderbeast, if she didn't have Omelette, I think that means she wouldn't attack Eretz Fortress.
Sure.
And that would mean
Well,
that
one question, like, would she be able to create the Dragon Sanctuary?
Yeah, that's another thing. We don't know what the sanctuary was like. If she was she a traveler? Was she always there and just the Bewilderbeast allowed her to, have this sanctuary? So there will be no sanctuary. There will be no attack on Eret, and that also means if there was no attack on Eret, would that mean Eret actually brought those dragons she freed to Drago, and Hiccup and Astrid would never actually see Eret when they come across him?
Another question is this isn't so much a what if question. This is always something that kind of bugged me. Cloudjumper is on Berk, so we have to assume that he was under the Red Death's control at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the assumption there, right? With that being the case, is it Valka who broke him out of that control? And if so, when and how did they wind up with the Bewilderbeast? Because unless we're saying that the Bewilderbeast controlled dragons as well and had them also attack Berk.
That's actually...
what is Cloudjumper's deal? Again, that's one of the things that I still have a bit of a question on the second movie.
No, Cloudjumper, I just think he was BFF ever since he took her.
On that.
Okay, Mr. Gargamel.
I'm just gonna go big on that. Big thonk. I don't know. I don't. It's. I guess getting back, different topic, I suppose, that one. But yeah, I think there's some stuff that could come from this one, but I don't think too much would change, really. Like, a lot of things would still be fairly similar. It's just, Drago would probably be much, much stronger, right? But I guess the question is, like, are we saying the egg doesn't exist at all, or that Valka isn't the one who gets it? Hello?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Because if it's just Valka doesn't get the egg, then does someone else get the egg, or does no one find the egg?
Because the egg essentially is with the Bewilderbeast scene Race to the Edge. That egg belongs to it. So the question is, let's another what if Johan is not there to grab it, and neither is Krogan, and Hiccup is not there, then that Bewilderbeast will just grow naturally with its parent.
Yeah. And I guess they'll just kind of hang around under Berserker Island.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So, I think, Valka never didn't find the egg is basically what if Johan and Krogan and the hunters never looked for that egg in general to bring to Drago?
Or they never found it. It's
also.
Yeah, let's just say, no one ever finds the egg. The egg grows up with its parent, happy and content, and they live under Berserker Island forever and ever. The end. If that's the case, then let's say Drago still ends up finding a Bewilderbeast elsewhere, right? With that being the case, they fail, he still finds a Bewilderbeast out on his own elsewhere. So with that being the case, that definitely changes up the second movie, because there's not another Bewilderbeast to challenge Drago. So does that mean, does Toothless? I guess, yeah, I think some stuff. I think Toothless would still challenge it. Let's say Toothless is still around. Hiccup didn't kill Toothless. Again, we're not adding in what ifs. We're keeping everything the same, except changing that one what if. Right? That's the goal here. and seeing what would change based off of that. So, like, I think, most of the second movie would still go the same. You just wouldn't have a big battle between Volka's wildebeest and Drago's wildebeest because Drago's wildebeest wouldn't have no challenger, as far as he's aware of.
Yes.
So, any dragons that Drago has are just instantly on Drago's side. And so we still get the ending in the second movie where the babies don't follow the wildebeest and Toothless challenges the wildebeest and now he's the new alpha. Yay.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah,
The
that would still happen, but differently. That's the basic gist of it.
I suppose, like, the other options again, like you said earlier, like, would Hiccup and Astrid meet Eret? Would Valka destroy Eret's fortress still? Would Valka have any dragons with her at all? Would she have a place that she calls home, like the sanctuary? Would it be somewhere different? Would it be somewhere, a different location, stuff like that nature? I would say, again, like, all those questions would still be, like, she would still attack Eret's fortress because she wouldn't do it with the wildebeest, she would just do it with the dragons that she saved, those who are able to attack it, right? That would be the case.
Yeah.
That would be what would happen.
Although, my headcanon to this, like, the way I see it, is that Valka did rescue dragons before the Bewilderbeast. Like, I do think that sanctuary was something that was there. The thing is that with the Bewilderbeast, it made her job easier.
Oh, sure.
Because the reason she didn't go after
it's a big giant fuck off dragon. It's gonna make a lot of jobs easier.
Yeah, but what I mean by this though is that even though she has a lot of dragons when we meet her, like when Hiccup arrives at the fortress and stuff, she has a lot of dragons. A lot of dragons are not a giant ice-breathing dragon that can demolish everything. So I think that the reason she wouldn't attack Eret's fortress is because she doesn't have the means to it. And if she had the Bewilderbeast, what is canon, then she had the means to do it. But without that, I'm not entirely sure. Like, it's because again, if one big dragon is a lot more than because Eret is a drunken hunter. He's walking with other hunters. They know how to handle a few dragons if they come their way. And worse, they could actually imprison those dragons and bring them back to Drago. Should Valka lose some. So if she has the Bewilderbeast, that's a no challenge there. Just like
Do you remember, right? Like, we do have that short of Valka sneaking in at night into a fort and freeing dragons that way.
That was the alternate opening to the second movie.
Yeah, do remember that is a thing that exists. Like, we do have that little thing that they created. So there is, like, she still can, attack Eret's fort and free all the dragons that they have. And, like, attack Eret's fort that way, like, take them by surprise.
But she's doing it with the Bewilderbeast.
No, she's doing it with Cloudjumper.
No. In the alternate opening, the Bewilderbeast is there.
But Cloudjumper's the one who helps her free the dragon silently. Like, the Wildebeest doesn't do anything until after that point. So,
yeah, but the point is, like, if the Bewilderbeast wasn't there, it could have gone a bit away.
Possibly, but I think she would still attack Eret's fort. I would say that would still be a thing to happen. She would still be attacking the dragon hunters. She would still be freeing dragons. She just wouldn't have the Wildebeest to help her, so she would be more careful about it.
I'm really overthinking this now, but again, another headcanon.
This is overthinking the podcast,
yeah,
so.
Basically, but I think, like, the way I see it is that she is obviously aware of Drago. And for what we know, Eret has been working closely with Drago for who knows how long. And when what was I about to say? So I think she kind of fought Eret a few times, and when Eret noticed that he has this rival, he and his hunters build the fort in order to better protect their capture, their captured dragon, so that Valka will have a bit of a more of a challenge, and that's when she brings the wildebeest into the picture. It's just like my enemies are getting stronger, I should get stronger too.
Okay. Fair enough.
So moving on. Moving on, because we should, let's see here. What if Valka was evil? Well, we kind of talked about this one. Let's just move on.
Somewhat, yeah.
What if more book elements made it into the film as well? This is more of your territory.
Honestly, there's not a ton of book elements you could take that would really change things up. Like, I guess you could say Alvin could be more of a threat, but I guess I don't, you could say the Vikings yell a lot more.
If you have nothing, let's say just
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's read the books, like it's probably like people are, other book readers are very upset with me, but I don't know if there's a lot of elements you could take from the books that would make it into the films that would really change things up in a major what if sort of way, right?
Yeah, like I think one of the ideas I had in mind when I wrote this was,
I'm sure what
you
do you
know,
got?
was like a Berk actually being destroyed rather than just threatened in Hidden
Destroyed.
World.
No, okay.
Yeah, but at the same
Because
time,
Burke is
again,
destroyed. Is somewhat destroyed in the books. Like that is a thing that happens somewhat.
yeah, so
Though
so
it's not by Grimmel or the Warlords, it's by dragons.
yeah, but at the same time, Berk being destroyed though, that it will give the Hiccup more of a reason to move everyone. Just not just, oh, we need to move because there's this guy and we're getting kind of overpopulated. If the place was destroyed, then I think it would have had much more of impact. But at the same time, we would still leave the old Berk and get to the new Berk, so it doesn't really matter in the long run. It's just more of a.
That's fair. I guess one big thing you could pull from the books is, and again, like this comes down to like how would you pull it from the books to the movies is the dragons being able to talk and communicate. Like in the books, it's Dragonese and only Hiccup can understand them. So how would you pull that over into the movies and the show?
Well,
right? Like, would the dragons just be able to talk point blank, or
they did a bit of it with like in the show with them kind of learning how to
that's
how
the
to
dragon
mimic a
calls,
dragon's
though.
call. Yeah.
I guess in a way, but like, let's say the dragons but that's not really the dragons communicating though. That's just them giving the dragons signals for, hey, do this thing, and the dragons do it. That's more training than anything. Let's say the dragons actually do have a way to communicate, like they can actually talk. Let's just say the dragons point blank they can talk. That would change quite a bit, because again the dragons can talk now.
Yeah.
So like that would definitely change some stuff, but it would change things so dramatically that you're talking about an entirely different thing, I feel. Because I mean, then at that point it's like, hey Hiccup, I want a girlfriend, help me.
Well, that's one way to look at it.
That would really change up the hidden world a lot.
Yeah. Trust me, relationships are nothing but pain and misery. Well, just because yours is like that doesn't mean mine will be like that.
Let's say it's a good thing the dragons can't talk in the films and the show.
Well, rescue riders will have some words with you should it be real. But
I'm very interested to see where and how that goes. But anyways, if it becomes a thing.
Okay, so the next thing I wrote is Valka took Hiccup with her in the beginning. I should rephrase that. Like, what if a Cloud Jumper kidnapped both Valka and baby Hiccup?
Stoic's gonna be pissed. Every dragon gonna die. Like Berk would be a very different place. I feel Astrid would be very different as well. Like you definitely have like that would probably be a much more feral, I guess you would say it, word kind of like Hiccup meeting Astrid would be very interesting, right? Like you would definitely have a much more interesting meeting between Hiccup and Astrid at that point if they did
Yeah,
meet.
but that's the thing. If Hiccup grew up with Valka away from Berk, then that begs the question: would the Berkians even come across them? Because there's no Hiccup to befriend a dragon and
Well,
go
I
find the.
guess the question you have to ask is, would Valka talk about Stoic? Because that's the one reason Hiccup would want to go out and adventure. Like what I think, like let's say Hiccup still has that adventurous spirit. He still wants to go out and explore the world, right? Like he's still that's still a part of who he is. That never changes. Let's say that part never changes about him. He's going to find Berk, and if that's the case, he's going to find Berk. He's going to explore. He's eventually going to come across Berk. I feel. Like that's going to be the case, I think, because it's just he's going to want to see and find out who his dad is. So that could create an interesting scenario of Hiccup coming back to Berk and meeting Stoic for the first time, and that could create an interesting discussion of Stoic coming to grips with.
You know something? I can totally see this becoming like a Tarzan story.
Yeah. Because again, like you have
something, I'm actually not sure if somebody wrote this. Man, if you're a fan fiction writer and you're listening to this, write this, please. I would love you forever.
I feel like it's not what is it? I do kind of feel like I hear him scream touches on this a little bit, right? In the way of Stoic having to come to grips with his son being gone for so long and trying to get reacquainted with his son somewhat, right? And trying to reconnect with his son. Like I think I hear him scream. Like it does it in a very roundabout and kind of much different way because Hiccup turns into a Night Fury in that story, but it still has some of the same vibes to it. It's not quite the same, but it has some similarities.
Yeah, I get what you mean, but at the same time, it's not one-to-one what I had in mind.
Oh, sure.
But okay.
But it does touch on the idea a little bit of Hiccup and Stoic having to reconnect.
So you know what? I'll have to credit Rift for that once she's online. And okay. Anything to add on this one?
Not really. Well, like I said, I think the big one is like seeing Stoic and Hiccup reconnect, and if they could, would they? How would they get along? And would that lead back to Volca? And how they would get along and everything. Like
so
I think the big thing would be family reconnections, right? And could they still be a family even after all that time? How much would Stoic have changed? Like, would he have hardened his heart too much?
Wolf, now that I'm not interested in this discussion, but I might actually need this along. So let's.
I'm done. It was just that little bit. Let's move on.
Okay, so moving on. What if Toothless didn't break free of the Alpha's control at the end of
Very quickly, Hiccup's dead, story's over.
Yeah, everybody. This is the everybody dies version.
Not everybody dies, but a lot of people die. Berk is captured. Drago owns everyone. Drago basically controls everything. Story done.
Drago wins. Fatality.
Wins. There you go. That's it.
Icetality. There you go. Actually, whatever. Okay.
I mean, I think that covers it pretty well. I don't think there's too much else you could get from it.
But kind of going back a bit, what if Stoic was too late and Toothless shot Hiccup?
It's a bit more in depth. Like you would definitely Hiccup would be dead. Stoic would still be chief. Stoic would probably take down Drago at that point.
Yeah, but that also kind of one thing I do.
They would definitely have another fight back on Berk again. Stoic would rally his people, and even more people would die.
Wait. This is something I do want to talk about because there's after after that, after Toothless kills Stuik, there's a small bit where Hiccup is actually mad at Toothless, and he doesn't know. And even though it's after Valka tells them that it's not it's not his fault and stuff, Hiccup does realize that it's not really Toothless's fault. Yeah, but Stuik is not like Hiccup. Stuik is a lot more short-tempered. He's a lot more aggressive, and he listens a lot less. So what would Stuik do if he saw Toothless killing Hiccup, mind control or not?
Axe in the head, Toothless also dead.
Okay, this is one anticlimactic way to look at this, but
I mean that's what would happen. Stoic would lose it. Toothless would be trying to figure out what's wrong with Hiccup. Stoic would lose it, and it's an immediate axe in the head. Then Valka would get upset with Stoic. Valka might even try and stop him, and Stoic still doesn't listen, maybe, and Stoic kills Toothless regardless.
Yeah. Stoic killing Toothless in this scenario, I think, is inevitable. But
if you do, maybe say hey, maybe Valka and the other teens are able to convince Stoic not to kill Toothless, he's still going to not want Toothless around. Stoic's done with protecting dragons at that point. He's done with
this is like changes the entire peace thing that he was willing to go with for the last 5 years. He is not having any of that anymore.
Dragons would probably no longer be allowed on Berk anymore, right? He would say, okay, I'm done with this. We may not kill dragons anymore, but Berk's done with being a place where dragons can live safely. No dragons allowed anymore. The thing Mildew wants, Stoic would finally say, okay, yeah, you can have.
And the thing, the interesting thing about it is that I don't see Stoic's mind being changed about this. Were this to happen, he would ban dragons from Berk forever, and he would just not want any kind of connection to dragons ever.
I can see
but at the same time, though, there is the question: if he's not supporting dragons anymore, how would they go back to Berk? Because they don't really have a way to do that, because they won't ride the babies. Stuik doesn't know about that, and he doesn't want anything to do with dragons anymore. So would they even be able to go back to Berk?
They make a boat. They make a boat and sail back. There's plenty of wood lying around. Or they just hey, you're part of Drago's army that he left behind. We're taking your boat now. Are you going to fight Stoic? Are you going to fight an angry, pissed off Stoic who just lost his son? I wouldn't.
No. Fair point.
I wouldn't fight off an angry, pissed off Astrid who just lost Hiccup. Nah, I'm good.
Oh, that's something. The way I see it, Stoic would be the boat, and Astrid would just row all the way to Berk. If that was the case, they would have the energy.
I mean, yeah, I'm not fighting a pissed off Astrid, and I'm definitely not fighting a pissed off Stoic. The bear of a man that is 7 or 8 foot tall, who is as wide as a barn.
Something? Actually, looking at it like this, if this were to happen, I don't think Stoic would even think, and he would probably run and kill Drago before he even touches Toothless. Or after, I don't know. The point is, actually, that's something. If Stoic doesn't kill Toothless, Drago doesn't necessarily have something to run. Actually, can wind up with.
Yeah, you're getting too deep here. You're like,
okay.
Oh, mind blown. But what about? Oh no, wait, that's not really much of a mind blown. Never mind. You're blowing your mind too much. You're blowing your mind too much that you're actually not blowing your mind.
Yeah, I'm blowing my mind more that I can't need to,
rein it in, HC. Pull it back.
Yeah, so I'm pulling it back and I'm saying, well, this is all for this episode of the Berkcast. We hope you enjoyed. What i- what is your favorite How to Train Your Dragon AU, and what do you think about the AUs we brought up here? Do you have any ideas? Do you want to develop them? Do you want to write fan fiction about them? Whatever you want to do, you
You're
can tell
welcome
us
for
all
all of
about
the
it.
ideas.
Yeah, you're welcome, by the way. You can do all of that in the comment section below, on our Tumblr, where we are known as Berkcast Team, on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C, and you can find all of us in the How to Train a Dragon Valhalla Discord server. So until next time, I was HC.
Hiccup Star, and I've been Wolf.
And we'll talk to you all next time after I kill this guy. Take care.
Bye-bye.